Are you a reading main? Or maybe you are a listening main? Over a decade of language learning has taught me that the meta, for the most part, has always been focus on reading. You know, that's the mantra, just read. And while just read means consume media in the target language, the focus is specifically on reading, because we know that reading gives you the most out of the time you spend into it. Reading has historically shown that gives you the most vocabulary acquisition, the most grammar intuition, and overall it spans the widest breadth of the language, whereas listening is much more limited. However, I believe that especially recently there's been more development on the idea that listening is also incredibly beneficial, not only from an accent point of view, but also to build the fundamental intuition that you need to have in your first journey when you start learning a language. Now, some people claim there are like learning styles where you might be more visual focused, or more tactile, or more like activity focused, or you prefer to like talk to people, you prefer to like read books or something. Technically, this is bullshit. There is no such thing as learning differently for the most part. We are all humans, and ignoring specific cases where some people might be much more peculiar in their neuroatypical formation, let's say, for the most part, we pretty much know that we all learn the exact same way. However, this doesn't mean that we cannot have preferences. And this is where the idea of a listening main or a reading main comes from. So for the most part in this video, I want to talk about the idea of a listening main, and because I am a listening main, and I want to talk about my journey on how I got fluent in Japanese as a listening main. When I was starting, I was doing mostly listening. And also I want to focus on the idea of enjoyment, and especially what we call Funmaxxing. The theory behind Funmaxxing can apply both to listening and reading. So if you are somebody who doesn't like listening, who is not a listening main, and you are more of a reading main, I think the contents of this video with regards to Funmaxxing are going to be relevant to you anyway. But first, let's take a step back. I think a big mistake that a lot of people make when they try to approach language is to try and formalize the language into a set of rules that they can apply as a model to the entire language. And this is a very methodical, very academic view of the language. But we know that languages are not quite like that, or at least they don't start like that. For example, if you take a kid learning a language will not focus on the grammar or the vocabulary. The kid will focus on trying to just enjoy and understand what the hell is going on. And we know that language acquisition happens when you understand the message. The form doesn't matter as much. Now, I'm not saying that as adults we should be learning as a child, because we know that adults can learn languages much faster if they apply some logic and grammar studies. So I'm not saying you should just be like a child and enjoy language without any knowledge of it. But there isn't a point in saying that you need to build your intuition in a natural way that goes beyond just learning the rules. Now, for the point of this video, I will be talking about the secondary aspects of language learning, which is enjoyment and natural acquisition. But I'm not dismissing the idea that you need to have your grammar books, you need to have your textbooks or grammar guides, or you need to have your Anki or vocabulary grinding, sentence mining. All that kind of stuff is important, and you should keep doing that until you are at the point where you can easily and naturally enjoy consuming the content in the target language. This said, I know a lot of learners who unfortunately seem to be mentally stuck with the idea that they need to understand everything. Everything they come across needs to be perfectly understandable. Let me be clear, you will never understand everything perfectly, not even in your native language. I cannot change your mind. I am not in your mind. I am not you. But the one thing you need to try is to shift your mindset. You need to focus on enjoyment. Everything in this life is focused around enjoyment. If you do not enjoy things, you are not living. You are already dead. Let me say this again. If you're not having fun, there is no point in doing it. Some of you are going to be hate watching this video and say things like, no, you're wrong. How can I enjoy if I don't understand everything? How can I enjoy if I don't know if this is a verb or an adjective or a noun or whatever? I don't give a shit. Close this video, go read. For those of you who are still here, come with me on this journey of enjoying language learning. I want to start with this anecdote that I noticed from watching kids learn languages. So my son is 3 years old and he's been picking up both English and Japanese. And just the other day, I had this very interesting exchange where he was watching a movie, Totoro, My Neighbor Totoro. He was watching it in English, actually. And there is this scene where one of the kids has just encountered Totoro, this like giant monster thingy. And he's like super excited, and she goes to her father and she's like, Dad, I met Totoro, he's huge. And she makes like this like gesture, like he's huge. And I looked at my son, he was watching the movie, and I said, what does huge mean? He looked at me super happy and he was like, sugoi. Now, that's wrong. Huge does not mean sugoi. Huge means big, oki, or whatever, right? Of course. Sugoi is like amazing. But you know what? He was right. It doesn't matter. In that scene specifically, the point was the kid was so excited to talk to her father, and she wanted to convey this message that Totoro was awesome, like this huge monster, like this massive thing. And in the mind of a kid, that's all that mattered. He understood the message. He understood what was being said, and the meaning of the word huge in that moment meant sugoi. And that's fine. I want you to remember this, because this is how you should feel when you're enjoying the language. It is not easy. I think it's valuable to do dictionary lookups and go look at words you don't know or sentences you don't understand. It's important to ask for help if you think it's a sentence that is fundamental to your understanding. But it's okay to move on. It's okay to understand that the message is what matters. And if you have enough visual cues from whatever you're watching, if you're watching an anime, you're playing a game, you are like talking to somebody, if you have enough context, you will understand the message without knowing the words or the grammar. And then as you keep studying, you will learn more grammar, you will learn more words, and those things will help you get better understanding. But the point is, you need to have fun. You need to extract the message out of enjoyment. If you're not having fun, do something else. You have to find what is fun. That is what a Funmaxxer does. Another thing that I think people struggle as they grow up and they become adults, we focus on the shape of the language, the grammar, the words. Try to move past that. Look at what is happening. And this, especially with Japanese, you are very lucky because Japanese has a very specific type of humor that is very visual. There's like a lot of gags that are like visual gags and comical situations where you do not need any language at all to enjoy it. You don't need to understand everything. You need to, if somebody repeats the same sentence over and over with the visual cues that you get from the anime, that's enough. It's not optimal. It's not for learning. It's for fun. When you're a kid watching TV or playing games, you don't do it to be optimal. You don't optimize your learning. You do it because it's fun. And if you do it for 1,000 hours, 2,000 hours, 10,000 hours, you will become fluent. That's how it works. There is also one question that I get asked a lot. And the question is, should I use subtitles? For the most part, I don't think it matters. I think you should be doing what is the most enjoyable for you. Especially as a beginner, your priority is to have fun. So if you have more fun with subtitles, then go for it. If you find that it's easier without subtitles, for example, for me, I found that it was easier to watch simple anime without subtitles. So subtitles distracted me from the main experience, so I didn't use them much. But if you prefer subtitles, then go for it. One thing that I will mention though is that English subtitles do not exist. Do you understand me? The moment you start interacting with Japanese, English doesn't exist anymore. This is the fundamental core value that I think is important when you're a Funmaxxer, because if you follow the idea that you should be enjoying whatever you want the most, then you will revert to using English. But that is not what you want. What you want is to learn Japanese. And if you want to learn Japanese, you need to Funmax in Japanese. Now, you can use a dictionary, like a Japanese-English dictionary, that's fine. You can Google for explanation in English, that's fine. What I'm saying is, if you're consuming Japanese content, that content should be in Japanese. No English subtitles, no English interfaces, no English explanation, dual subtitles, no. Just 100% Japanese. This is not negotiable. Now let's move on to the idea of listening main, and especially in my experience, because so far we talked about Funmaxxing and how to try and enjoy Japanese and how to get the most enjoyment out of what you consume. But at the same time, it is difficult. When you're first starting out, things are going to be out of your reach. And as I mentioned in my previous video about setting up your right expectations, you need to have the expectation that you will not understand most of it. But it will still be fun. You have to find the things that are fun, even at low comprehension. If you can have high comprehension and you will build your tolerance by studying and learning new words and grammar, that's great. But at the same time, you should always try to find the most fun out of whatever you have. If life gives you lemon, you make lemonade. So my story as a listening main. When I first started, I had no concept of what a listening main or a reading main was, and I had no idea how language learning worked in the first place. I just knew that I learned English by playing a lot of games and reading a lot of books. That's it. Of course, I had English in school, but for the most part, I just wanted to engage with English content, and that's how I learned English. And so when I first started learning Japanese, I did the exact same thing. I didn't care about studying, I didn't care about grammar, I just wanted to enjoy Japanese content. So in my situation, and I'm not saying this is how you should be doing it, I'm just saying this is how I did it. I grew up for maybe over 20 years just watching a lot of Japanese content, especially anime. I watched a lot of anime with English subtitles, but the audio was always in Japanese. And so that gave me a nice intuition for how that language sounded. And that helped me a lot because before I even started learning the language, I was already watching some slice of life anime episodes without any subtitles at all. I just in Japanese. And my comprehension was very, very low. But at the same time, I was having fun. And I could follow most of the story because slice of life anime is not very dense, it's not very important, and if you miss some stuff, it doesn't matter. But that's how I did it. So for me personally, and I think a lot of people watching this video might be in the same situation, I just wanted to do that, to continue doing that. So I just kept watching anime. I watched anime mostly slice of life, as I said, like Danshi Kokosei no Nichijou. There's a bunch of stuff like Sakura. So I mean, I started like mid 2010s. So back then, what was popular, like Yuru Yuri, Yuyushiki, slice of life anime where each episode is mostly separate and divided in different skits. So even if you miss something, it doesn't matter much. I watched it a lot. I spent hundreds of hours just having fun. On the side, I tried to read manga and I could not read well because I didn't know much kanji and I didn't really study reading. As I said, I was mostly a listening main. So I could read manga with furigana, and in my mind, like if you can listen to Japanese, you can read in your mind the hiragana you find in like the furigana for manga, and that gave me some listening feedback while I was reading, which is fundamental. And I also play a lot of video games, mostly voice acted JRPGs, so that also gave me listening input. If you're not the kind of person who has a long history with Japanese media, then this start might be a bit too hard for you. And I've seen people recommend things like comprehensible Japanese videos. There's like the ALG crowd, there's like a bunch of crazy people, but they have some good resources on doing like comprehensible like lessons. I always found those to be super boring and kind of like, I don't like how they treat you like you're a little kid. I mean, that's kind of the point, but I don't like how, like, it's not interesting, it's not fun. But it's better than nothing. And if you don't have really any other option, I think doing some comprehensible input, comprehensible Japanese videos can be useful to get started with a listening focused approach. Then after anime, I wanted to move to something more complicated and something more interesting, maybe, and more real. And so I found this website called Spooncast. Spooncast is kind of like Twitch, but for radio. So you have a lot of like different streamers, and mostly they're like very small channels, like maybe they're like 10 or 15 viewers or listeners actually, and they do these streams where they are just talking to their audience, and you can just join. They have a very interesting culture where sometimes they will call you out or they will ask you explicitly to do like an introduction in chat. You can just ignore that. It is a bit awkward the first time, but it doesn't really matter, you don't have to worry about that. The point is that you get to hear somebody talk completely like randomly, unscripted, and it is kind of hard to follow, especially as a beginner. And I probably understood like only like 10% of it, but just having it in the background and also trying to pay attention, it gave me the motivation of, wow, I'm actually like interacting with somebody. I'm actually consuming Japanese content in Japanese, and that's fine. You kind of like pick up a bunch of words, you pick up the tone, the rhythm, the accent, and that's very important as well. If you are more on the visual side of things, then there's also VTubers and normal streamers. You know, like on Twitch or YouTube, you have Japanese people streaming. There's a lot of VTubers. My personal recommendation, if you are into HoloLive, there's Okami Mio, and she speaks very natural Japanese. Like a lot of them have like this like weird speech quirks and tone and like very high pitch. Mio is very neutral for the most part. Sometimes she's a bit weird, but that's normal. She does the Monday morning random chatting stream where she talks to her viewers and goes through like some tweets and stuff, and she just like talks randomly for like an hour or two. And even if you cannot catch the video live, you can go back and rewatch all the recorded content and rewind. And it's really fun. I think it's if you want to consume like natural Japanese content, then I think that's been great for me personally. And what I did after maybe 1 or 2 years, and I know this is 2 years is a long time, and I'm not saying you should not read. I'm not saying you should not consume written content. I'm just saying what I did. After 2 years of mostly engaging with anime and furigana manga, I started moving towards more written content, and I couldn't read a lot until I used, the usual suspects, have Yomitan, do some Anki and stuff. And that built my intuition for learning how to read kanji and learning how to read kanji compound. And the interesting thing is that if you come from a position of listening strong, like if you're listening main and you're used to consuming audiovisual content, you can really relate a lot of words you already know with their written representation. You have phonetic kanji, you have context to give you an idea. If you know a certain word, like if you know how a certain word is supposed to sound like, when you see it written down with the surrounding context, you go like, oh, so that's the word. I know this word. And that was very helpful in boosting my reading comprehension. And then after maybe 6 or 7 months of studying all the Joyo kanji, I realized that I had no more trouble reading. All I had to do was just continue reading, continue consuming written content like light novels, visual novels. Visual novels are a bit in between because there's also some listening. But at the time, I was not very into the genre, so I stuck to games for the most part. As you keep going, you get better and better and better. And the most important thing, you keep having fun. If you're not having fun, give up. There's really nothing else to say. So that's been my experience. That's been my journey as a listening main. But I really want to make sure you understand the point that Funmaxxing is the most important thing. You are learning this language and you're stuck in it for maybe tens of thousands of hours. If you want to get good, you need to spend the time. And if you want to spend the time, you need to make sure it's fun. If it's not fun, don't do it. Just give up. Go do something else. There's no point otherwise. I'll see you next time.